Mr. Sardonicus. Gotta love the name. This is another gimmicky, exploitive horror chiller from William Castle. It's about a doctor who gets a letter from his ex-girlfriend telling him to come to a remote castle in Europe where her husband, Sardonicus, the head of the castle, is in need of medical help. He goes along with it, arriving at the castle, which is full of all the spooky cliches you'd expect, including a suspicious manservant who's badly scarred. He meets Sardonicus, played by Guy Rolfe. No relation. He was in a lot of the Puppet Master sequels. Here, he's a wealthy but seclusive count, kind of like Dracula, but has his face covered with a mask like Phantom of the Opera to hide his terrible infliction. He explains what happened to him through a flashback. He had dug up the grave of his father because the father had a winning lottery ticket that was still in his pocket. You think they could have come up with a more interesting reason for him to dig up the grave, but it makes up for it with a freakishly weird death face. It's these kind of moments that stick out to me. I don't know whether to laugh or not. It's stupid, but it's so disturbing. Seeing this puts him into a state of shock, disfiguring his own face to be frozen forever in the same outrageous grin. The sinful act of robbing a grave classifies him as a ghoul, and that's why he is cursed to have that face. You don't see him unmasked very often. Apparently the makeup was extremely uncomfortable, I wouldn't doubt, so they kept it to a minimum, which maximizes its shocking effect. The face is the best part of the film. I wish the rest of it could have lived up more. The idea of a freaky grin was done way before in The Man Who Laughs from 1928, which was an inspiration for the Joker. Also, this guy tortures women by tying them up or hanging them in a room and putting leeches on them. Why does he do this? It has something to do with him using the women to find a cure for his face, but it doesn't make any sense at all. It's just a forced attempt to make him into a villain. He also threatens the doctor, forcing him into helping him. At least there, it gives a clear reason for his actions, but it's still weak. It's very important that Sardonicus is made into a ruthless villain because the whole gimmick at the end is that there's a punishment poll where the audiences supposedly get to decide the fate of Sardonicus. William Castle comes on screen, the showman that he is, and asks all the audiences to hold up their thumb cards, which they were given earlier. If you held it with the thumb facing up, you were voting to give Sardonicus mercy, but the thumb down meant no mercy. It seems stupid when you can just use your own thumb, but supposedly they were glow-in-the-dark, just to make sure Mr. Castle can see your cards from up there on the movie screen. Obviously, he's not really there, but he's playing it up, joking like, "Hey, you in the back row, can you hold it up more?" And then he starts counting them up and doing a bunch of fake math, and then he grins and says, "No mercy it is." Then the ending plays where Mr. Sardonicus has no mouth, or thinks he has no mouth, and is forced into starving to death. I think they could have come up with something better. On the other hand, the mercy ending nobody has ever seen because it doesn't exist. Think about it. Imagine if they shot two endings, then somebody would have to count up all the votes and then have the projectionist thread up the right reel. Although there has been many rumors that the other ending is out there somewhere waiting to be found. Even though it was a total gimmick, it succeeded in giving the audiences the feeling that they were participating. Overall, it's a weak film. It takes a potential love triangle subplot and a forced villain and almost goes somewhere with it all, but falls flat. The doctor insists that Sardonicus' face is psychosomatic, that it's produced by his mind. This could have led to more interesting psychological twists, but nothing really happens. The best thing it has going for it is the freaky face and the atmosphere with the castle and cemetery. It has a classic feel. It's just a not-so-classic film. It's still very interesting. This is a piece of history right here. But here's a crazy idea. Instead of remaking so many films that already are masterpieces to begin with, what about a remake of Mr. Sardonicus, and maybe this time with a real multiple ending?